I'm going to guess only Steven read the book, unless I'm wrong. Did anybody else read it? Who else read it? Oh, Tad and Kim both read it. All right, terrific.
Yeah, I read it. Yeah.
And Steven did as well. Yeah, I'd actually read this quite a number of years ago. Of course, it came out. I forget. I don't know much about Sikoryak. I don't even know how to pronounce his name, to be honest with you. But I mean, it certainly is astounding. And if I were a good moderator, I would have prepared. It certainly is astounding how you can duplicate so many styles. So if anybody has anything they'd like to really say or contribute, go right ahead. We'll probably cover whatever it is we need to say here. There we go. The obvious idea. Okay, so you take all of these great comics of the past and put them in literature. But the first thing I would like to say is how perfectly this guy draws in the style of each one of these cartoonists, which is not easy. That is not easy to do. I mean, he does Peanuts, he does Jim Davis here with Garfield, and it's just like it's like a perfect duplication. It's like a carbon copy, and there are very few artists who are capable of that kind of skill. I mean, I'm just knocked out about that. I really am. I mean, it's just perfect. And yeah, so that's the first thing that hits me is just how amazingly. I mean, it's not like Xeroxing. He actually does this. that takes some skill. This guy's got it going on, and he does the EC. Okay, so we'll go through all of this as we go, but that's the first thing I would want to point out. And secondly, of course, as he does all of this, he is entering in the satire and the comedy and the commentary about it all. Have to get up. Have to get up. Have to get up. I have a very annoying cat. Whew. Okay, so clearly he has some points that he is making as he goes along, and I guess we can discuss that. I don't know all too much about him. I think I've read an interview or two with him, but I don't know that much about him. He's done some other things. We can talk about that later on. He's done some follow-ups here and there. We can talk about it. Little Lulu here. So one thing I would point out is the creativity of figuring out which ones to go with which. Like there are like certain matches that he's making that seem to fit together here. And we could just, I don't know if it would be tedious at all to go through them one by one. Maybe we won't do that, but to match for example, the story with Genesis with Blondie and Dagwood as the original Adam and Eve couple. Maybe some commentary on the staid domesticity of Blondie and Dagwood to match the naivete of the Adam and Eve story. You've got Garfield taking on the story of Faust, perhaps the naivete of John to match with the doctor in the story, and the arrogance and mischievousness of the Beelzebub as casting him as Garfield. So if you know the comics, then you can kind of see what the match is between the comic and the famous story from literature. So this is kind of like a clever idea. I don't know if you've ever remember Hal Wilner, a guy who passed away last year from COVID complications, sadly. But Hal Wilner was a very famous music producer, and he produced Saturday Night Live music, and he's very famous, very well known in the music world. It was a very tragic loss, but he did a lot of compilation albums where he did like the Walt Disney music, and he would do things like well, famously he did like Tom Waits did the Seven Dwarfs Hi Ho song and other stuff like that. And he would do lots of these crazy matchups. So that kind of comes to mind when those are wonderful albums. You should check those out if you're interested. I think it was like NWA doing the Three Little Pigs or something like that. Who's Afraid of the Big Bad Wolf song or whatever. Anyway,
who's Mac Worth? The images look familiar.
This was Mary Worth.
Mary Worth, right?
Newspaper strip of Mary Worth, which ran for a long number of decades. When I was a kid, I didn't pay attention to the I didn't pay any attention to the serious soap opera comics that were drawn in the realistic style. We've talked about realism in comics in the past versus the cartoony style in comics. When I was a kid, I was never really interested in the like Rex Morgan MD and Apartment 7G and this was Mary Worth. I just skipped over them. But yeah, so if you did actually read the Mary Worth comic, Mary Worth was this nosy busybody neighbor who got involved in everybody's stories. And so to cast her as Lady Macbeth, that kind of fits. See, it's a good fit to form and function. I guess. And yeah, you kind of got the sense that at any point this Mary Worth girl would eventually snap, and by casting her as Lady Macbeth, that
she hung herself.
Yeah, right.
Much to the cheering of all the fans.
Yeah, but Lady Macbeth was on the way in the story. She was well on the way to madness all the way through. Yeah, it's often said that Macbeth should be retitled Lady Macbeth because she's the main character. Anyway, Macbeth himself is kind of a passive figure in the story. We read that in high school. Macbeth. Anyway, so to cast Candide as Ziggy, Ziggy was always this eternally optimistic character in the comics, eternally looking at the bright side and just just an observer of life. And here he gets cast as Candide. All I know is we must cultivate our garden. It's just the juxtaposition of these, these low art pop culture comics and comic strips, mid-century comic strips, which had nothing at all to do with high art, and to give them the remix, like a mashup, like a music mashup, with the famous stories of literature. Really, it's that juxtaposition that makes you.
I'm figuring out the monkeys chasing the naked ladies. I'm not too sure of the historical literate reference here. I might miss that one.
Which one?
Oh, the monkeys chasing the naked ladies in Ziggy.
Yeah, I believe the backdrop looks like if you read Dante's Inferno.
Oh, okay.
I think this is the style of Doré. I think is the artist, and I believe that's what's going on here. Is Yeah, these are obviously etchings. I mean, they're obviously pen and ink, but he's duplicating the style of those etchings that Dore would do in Dante's Inferno, and other artists would do it of the 18th and 19th centuries.
I do have a question. I'm not sure how to raise my hand.
Yeah. Okay.
So regarding Candide, I think I was kind of puzzled because it is a work of satire to begin with. And then so it's like he's trying to parody a satire. So that for me was a little bit like tough to understand, because I mean, I find Candide is hilarious. It's a hilarious parody, but then you put Ziggy in it and it's almost like, did he not get that Candide is a parody? So
That might be a good point. Yeah. Yeah.
but I
parody on
liked
top of
it.
parody. Yeah.
I mean, it's adorable. And Ziggy's adorable.
Well, I would take it on. I kind of would take it on the same level as like sketch comedy, like Saturday Night Live or Monty Python or something like that.
Okay.
You know, I think that the goal here really is, I mean, I think he does have good points that he wants to make, like serious points. But really, I do appreciate the whimsicalness of it all. I appreciate the whimsy. He's clearly having a blast doing this. You can it just comes through. I think it's a lot of fun. If you've been here before, and I know some of you have been here, regulars here. We're here every week, every Friday night. We've done a lot of serious stuff, so it's nice to do something lighthearted, and I think this counts.
So, what about the kid in the capitalistic ad there? That's the old comic book style advertisement, you know.
Okay.
Make a few dollars on the side. Did you see the kid's face?
Yeah, that's right. I think this is if you read old comics of well, really up all the old comics from 40s all the way up to the 80s, you saw advertisements in comic books like sell these like newspapers and stuff, and it's like advertisements like this. So these are parodies of those kinds of advertisements. It says grasp symbols and gain insight free. Yeah, right. Yeah, okay. And we've done things that are humorous and comedic in the past here. And I've always said the thing about comedy is, it either makes you laugh or it doesn't. You either find it amusing or you don't. So it depends on your sense of humor.
I mean, I really liked it. I guess what I'm trying to say is I find that this graphic interpretation is a very literal interpretation. It almost keeps it, a satirizing optimism, which was like his philosophy, Voltaire's philosophy.
Okay. Yeah. Well,
I really liked
well,
the.
I think I think the concept itself was the main point, to juxtapose yeah, what I was saying was, if you find that juxtaposition, it kind of brings into relief, by the contrast, both of these two entities. It makes you look at the work that he's adopting in a different way. You look at it through a new pair of lenses and see maybe a different insight into it, and it kind of gives you, oh yeah, okay, you can kind of see what that is about. And either it's to make a point, or either it's just to make you smile, and that's fine too. It's just intended to be amusing.
It's unforgettable.
Yeah, I'd read this a number of years ago. We've done a lot of stuff that I haven't read before, but if you've been here repeatedly through the weeks and months that we've been doing this, I think we started all the way back in June. We've done a lot of the great classics of comics, and we've done a lot of new stuff. And I try to give an overview of what the great comics are, and I think this is a fun comic. So this is Wuthering Heights, I believe, done in the style of the EC comics. We've done some EC comics in the past. We've done the war comics, but they were most famously known for their horror comics. So this is in the style of the EC horror comics of the 50s, to do Wuthering Heights. I never read it. I watched the movie. version, but I never read Wuthering Heights. Not sure I missed anything, to be honest.
I don't remember much about it. And actually, I skipped over that one. I think it has something to do with a lad named Heathcliff or something who like ends up going off, and the ending is, did he kill himself or didn't he kill himself?
Yeah, I didn't read it. I watched the movie version many
Some of the movies differ from the original story, particularly with the ending. In the original story, he simply survives on for years, hatching his plans, trying to gain control of land and stuff like that. But he gradually, his melancholy gets the better of him. He goes mad, and in the book, he shoots himself. That's
okay.
more or less the closing up of the story.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, one of the great pieces of literature. I mean, they've dramatised it. I don't know how many times. I don't know how many film versions they've made of Wuthering Heights.
Yeah.
And blessed be my ancestry originated from Thornton, which was the hometown of the Bronte sisters.
Oh, is that right? How about that?
Yes, that sort of insane melancholia is where I belong.
Tells me a lot about you, Stephen. Explains a lot. Yeah. Okay. Now, if you do read I don't know if anybody read these letters, but there's a little bit of information here.
I love the letters. I thought the letters were among my favorite part.
Yeah, he goes a little bit into the here. He talks about there's a similar food balancing technique used in Chick Young's 1930 newspaper strip Blondie and Dagwood. Several points of comparison between these two well-meaning mortals and the couple described in the first story of Genesis. So you can see he sort of gives you a little bit of hints as to where your mind ought to go into comparing the two elements that he mashed up together.
So I'm trying to figure out the Wuthering Heights one. Was that Creepy Tales or Weird Tales?
I believe the horror EC comics were Crypt of Terror and they did them like a movie and like a couple of shows based on it. The Vault of Horror, something like that. The Crypt of Bronte, yeah. 1950s graphic horror narrators, Al Filstein, Jack Davis. Yeah, okay. It doesn't say which. Yeah, I think it was the Crypt of Terror and the Vault of Horror, I think, were the names of the comics. Yeah. So yeah. So Little Lulu was the Scarlet Letter. That's the name of it, right? I think again, another one I saw the movie a long time ago, but never read the book.
Little Lulu is a movie.
No, the Scarlet Letter, is that the name of it? The Scarlet Letter. That's the name of it, right?
Oh, right.
Yes.
So that's the story he's taken, right?
Yeah. Okay, I saw the movie a long time ago. Anyway, yeah, and to be perfectly honest with you, I'm really not very familiar with Little Lulu herself either. To be honest, I never read a whole lot of that.
It seems there was movie cartoons made in the 1940s.
Yeah, I remember. I know. Yeah, I remember Little Lulu's cartoons, and I was never really that interested, to be honest. So I never paid much attention to her. Okay, so yeah, this.
So you skipped, Dave. You skipped the Dante's Inferno as told by Bazooka Joe bubblegum cards, which I thought was brilliant.
Oh yeah.
Having it chapterized via.
Okay, sure thing.
Via the bubblegum cards.
There you go. Yeah, if you're anybody who is of a certain generation, did they still make Bazooka Joe? Are they still around? Do they still make Bazooka Joe bubblegum?
I wouldn't know.
Yeah, so I'm gonna guess no. But if you are of a certain generation, you remember Bazooka Joe Bubblegum, and they would have these comics in there. Yeah. And again, I'm just knocked out at how perfectly he duplicates the art style and the presentation and the graphic design of all of these. It's
My
just,
favorite part were the subtitles: Inferno Joe and the Lustful, Inferno Joe and the Gluttons. Like, he really nails the Dante's each book,
yeah,
and then the fortune that leads you to the next one.
yeah.
Really, really well done.
And it's just it's like Mad Magazine. It's like it's something that would come out of Mad Magazine, or maybe like you would see it on Saturday Night Live, where they would do something crazy like this. It's just that the juxtaposition of things that don't go together, and they shouldn't go together, like these low art pop culture children's comics, combined with the great literature of the Western Occidental tradition. and they don't match in any way, because clearly the intention is entirely different on both, and they don't fit together, and that's the comedy. That's why it's funny. Yeah, it's like Mad Magazine. You would see Mad Magazine did lots of stuff like this.
In 2012, Bazooka Candy brands announced they'll no longer include comics, instead using brain-teasing puzzle wrappers.
Ah, okay then. Yeah.
But in April 2019, there was some announcement of a Bazooka throwback pack.
Oh, okay.
So maybe they did one with the comic again.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Like, I mean, Dante's Inferno, which is supposed to be a very harrowing journey, travelogue through the 9 circles. It's 9, right? Yeah, 9 circles of hell. And it's intended to, give you a sharp confrontation with your own fallibility and your own mortality. And to put that in the format of a children's bubblegum comic strip of at most 4 panels each, it's just ridiculous, which of course is the point. And even
Bazooka Joe was so violent and aggressive in a fairly adult way.
Oh, really? Okay. I mean, I don't remember, to be honest. Yeah. The Bazooka Joe comics. I mean,
there was a lot of fighting and bullying, and they were very, very aggressive.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, in a way, there's kind of a point to be made here about art itself, isn't it? I mean, the ridiculous nature of the artistic project, the artistic endeavor. I mean, the act of creativity itself is being indicted here in a way, if you want to go that far. I don't know if we do, but
well, Bazooka Joe sort of reminds me of the Egyptian friezes in a way. I could see them decorating the tombs.
Yeah,
they had a Book of the Dead, didn't they? So this one would be perfect.
Okay, sure, yeah. That stripped down pure representational iconography. Yeah, I mean, they're just barely glyphs. Yeah, just 2 dots for eyes and a line for a mouth, and yeah, right. You've just stripped the work out of all of its depth and complexity into making this such a milliliter thin depth of superficial surface level interpretation. I mean, that's well, it's obscene and it's absurd and it's I mean, yeah, it's got to make you laugh. It really does.
I especially like the I don't like the numbered, how they're all numbered in the lower right hand corner, and it's like something you can buy, like the kazoo number 221 Devil's Trumpet. I find those little parts of each comic are really hilarious.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
The 3-headed dog collar.
Yeah.
But I mean, David, in terms of the where high and low art meet, I mean, this is just the next extension of say Warhol or Jasper Johns.
Okay, sure. It calls into question the validity of these distinctions. You know, where do you make the distinction? What are the lines drawn? Yeah, I think that might be one of the points being made here. You know, to consider that there is no difference. That maybe it's our prejudice that's telling us, oh, you can't do that. You can't have these kinds of adult themes and this kind. Well, why not? Maybe you can. Does it work? Does it not? Does it get its point across? You know, maybe that's the only, it's possible. Maybe that's the only thing that we should take into consideration. We don't for traditional and maybe cultural and sociological reasons. But we probably won't correct that anytime soon. But maybe that's kind of the point. Maybe it's an indictment of our own bigotry. You know, I mean, we've often talked here in this very group in the weeks past that comics still to this day have a very poor reputation for being, you know, kid stuff or trash for children or superhero garbage. And it shouldn't. It's just an art form like movies, like prose, and it shouldn't be castigated just for being a form. You know, the form is the form. You can
Well, I think that's changed with the advent of the graphic novel and the Marvel universe, and
not enough
with movies like The Watchmen, and
not enough. It's better. I'll give you that. It's better, but
I mean, there are college courses now, you know, that are based entirely on. So I do think it's getting respect, at least from the academics.
yeah, I guess I'm just pessimistic cuss. Yeah. Yeah, here's another ad, Pickwad whaling ship from Moby Dick. Yeah, if you see anything you really like, point it out. I really like this one, Dostoevsky Comics, done in a perfect pastiche of the Dick Sprang 1950s Batman comics. I mean, it's perfect. It's a perfect copy of a Dick Sprang Batman.
So well done.
Yeah, absolutely. And isn't it a good match to have Rascal in Crime and Punishment cast as Batman?
Well, they're both playing God.
Yeah, okay.
They've decided they're above the normal standards of society in one way or other.
Yeah, sure. I mean, he just so perfectly mimics the style of all these various comics. Not too many cartoonists could do this. I mean, very few. So you got
the style of the Batman comic reminds me a bit of the Phantom.
Yeah, maybe. You got all the cast of characters here. You got Batman and the Joker, is the old woman actually, and Robin and Commissioner Gordon. You know, the whole cast here. I mean, perfect. I mean, he knows his stuff. You know, and it's just, I mean, he's respectful. That's the thing. I mean, it's not. I don't believe you can get the impression that he's poking fun at any of this. I don't think you could. Even the comics or the literature. I mean, the project is what it is, and maybe that's the disrespectful part if you're of a bent to go in that direction. But I don't think he is intending to disrespect either one of the two elements that he's taking on. I think he's taking on, for example, each one of these comics in the style and presentation and legitimacy of their own milieu and their own validity, and presenting it straight on its own terms. You know, not intending to exaggerate or satirize or parody.
Even Beavis and Butthead.
later on. Yeah, we'll get there.
No, but I'm saying even he's not even making fun of them. I mean, he's showing you Beavis and Butthead on their terms.
Right. Like he's taking the idea that each one of these has its own necessary standards that deserve to be respected, and I think he's doing that. I mean, just the idea that, okay, we're going to do, for example, Crime and Punishment as a Batman story. Now, what would that be like? And let's do it straight. There's no winking at the audience. It's not intended to be a broad Borscht Belt comedy.
Is it?
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Is it a parody, perhaps, on literature itself, or the canon, or the fact that we're here on a Friday night, like discussing this? Is he making fun of us?
I think this is more an exercise. He's combining different styles of comics. What David pointed out, I'd taken for granted. I hadn't really thought about it, but the same artist is duplicating many different styles. But then he's framing it with a classic story. So this is just an exercise in his powers.
Okay, sure. I mean, if you have this ability, sure, you want to show it off. I mean, clearly he has this ability. Again, I don't know much about him. I think
it feels like an homage to me, not
an homage. Okay,
yeah,
not a parody of the canon.
I don't see it as a parody.
Yeah,
that's my feeling.
Yeah, I mean, clearly, I mean, it's taken in a lighthearted spirit. That's clear. I don't think he's intending it to be entirely, serious. I mean, it's not intended to be, dour and depressive. I mean, I do think you're intended to laugh at the comedy and also, come away with an impression of the cleverness of the conceit. And it makes me smile. And
I mean, it's humorous. It's very humorous. So, and it is respectful. It's a great use of humor. And I do think it is like an homage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the Portrait of Dorian Gray. It's Portrait of Dorian Gray. Yeah, that's the name of it. Portrait of Dorian Gray, Oscar Wilde, with Little Nemo in Slumberland. I think that's actually kind of perfect match, because if you do remember the Little Nemo comics, anybody remember those? The conceit of the presentation here is the portrait is always going to be in the same position in the panel, and as the panels progress, you can see that the portrait gradually continues to get more evil, as in the story. But that's a perfect match for Little Nemo, because that's a lot of what the comic strip did. That kind of graphic playfulness and that kind of graphic movement and progression, where every panel would be the same camera shot, but things would be progressing inside the panel. I hope I explained that well enough. That Little Nemo would do a lot of that, so it kind of does get across that effect if you're telling the story of the Portrait of Dorian Gray. And this is just grotesque how he ends up by the end here. Okay, this one, the Metamorphosis, Kafka's The Metamorphosis, with good old Gregor Brown, the Peanuts characters. I mean, who can do Peanuts so perfectly? Who can do Charles Schulz so perfectly? That's just amazing. Any cartoonist who tries to do a duplication of Charles Schulz fails miserably. But look at this. I am just knocked out. I can't believe it. I can't believe how perfectly I mean, it's not exactly perfect, okay, but for goodness sake, that's tough. It's tough to do a good Peanuts version. even though Charlie Brown's a cockroach in most of this. But I mean, isn't that a good match of Charlie Brown and Gregor Samsa? For goodness sake. And it perfectly matches the story with Greta and the apple. He's respectful to the story. He's going to give you the story as you can do it in a Peanuts 4 panels strip, daily strip. Yeah.
So one of the things I was thinking about this one, I loved it a lot. I thought it was great because like Kafka had this acute insight to the human condition and misery. And I take this story very literally. Like, I don't think you can have like a psychological interpretation or, like he wasn't really a bug when he woke up. But I think it's very literal. And it reminds me a lot of Charlie Brown. Like Charlie Brown is just miserable.
Yeah.
And it's just a very like literal interpretation of Peanuts as well as Kafka's Metamorphosis.
Sure.
I just thought it was great.
It is a perfect match. I mean, the depressiveness and the psychological mopiness of Charlie Brown, is a good match for Gregor Samsa specifically, but also Kafka in general. I mean, could you imagine? I mean, Peanuts. If you really read Peanuts, and I've read a lot of Peanuts, I've read a lot of Charles Schulz's Peanuts. And it gets dark at times.
Mhm.
It gets real dark. I mean, he just takes all these heavy psychological issues, and he just doesn't flinch from them. He just I think it really is one of the greatest comics of all time. I mean, we've talked about this before here in the group, where the Comics Journal at the turn of the century did their top 100 English language comics of the century, and Peanuts was number 2 of the entire century, and I think well deserved. It's really a dark strip with a lot of depth and a lot of a keen insight into the human condition.
So here's a thought, and I'm just thinking out loud here. There's a point where Gregor Samsa realizes he's no longer a person, but a thing.
Yeah.
And that's super depressing. So I don't know if Peanuts ever got to that point, but I see Charlie Brown.
Yeah.
Did he ever get happy? How did it end? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, no. I mean, there was no ending because, I mean, the thing about an ongoing comic strip is, it's not intended to ever be an ending. So there was never any proper ending.
So it's inescapable. Like he could never escape his misery. So it's perfect.
Which is part of an ongoing, comic narrative. Yeah, whenever a comic is created, it's intended to just go on forever until the artist dies. Which, in Charles Schulz's case, is literally what happened.
Yeah, this is so great. I think this should be used in class to teach literature. This whole book.
As a matter of fact, I did have a college literature class, which we did read Kafka's Metamorphosis, and I Xeroxed these and brought them into the teacher, and he appreciated it, and in fact Xeroxed my Xerox and gave it out to everybody. That's how impressed he was. I mean, this is only 2 pages, so anyway.
Yeah, no, it's great.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. I also did that with a couple other things too, but anyway. Now we got Camus' The Stranger, told as Superman, and it's not even a Superman story. It's just the covers. But these are Superman first appeared in a comic called Action Comics, and so these are kind of the type of covers you'd see on the Wayne Boring was the artist of Superman in the 1950s. These are kind of parodies of the 1950s Superman covers. the Stranger, he's called here, and there's no symbol, but he's clearly Wayne Boring's version of Superman into the 1950s, Lois Lane there. And it does tell the story of the Stranger and Camus. Do you love me? It's a meaningless question, but I suppose not. Look at that smug look on his stupid face. I mean, it's just so perfect. I mean, it's like one of those things where you kind of got the impression that Clark Kent was always kind of a dick, you know, you know, and yeah. To cast him as Meursault was the name of the character in Camus' novel. To cast him as Meursault, yeah, you can kind of see it, because Superman is just so invulnerable. Nothing affects him. He never loses. You know, bullets bounce off him. You can't kill him. You can't do anything to him because he's Superman. He's invulnerable. So isn't that kind of a good match for being Meursault? You know, I guess one can get used to anything. What he says in the prison, you know, don't waste your lousy prayers. You're just as condemned as me. Yeah, I always got the impression that Clark Kent and Superman were always these judgmental, looking down on the rest of us humans, you know, and so on and so on. And these are all done in the style of the 1950s DC comics, you know. The Stranger faces most dangerous foe, the prosecutor, like it's some superhero comic. And the chaplain pays a visit, obviously looking like Lex Luthor there. Yeah, I don't know. You know, again, it depends on your sense of humor. It makes me laugh. And here we go. So Beavis and Butthead are Go-Go and Dee Dee waiting for Godot. Yeah, and you can kind of see the commentary here. I mean, isn't that what Beavis and Butthead are about? With these two completely, utterly pointless souls doing nothing but watching television and you know, no greater purpose. And to cast them in Waiting for Godot is kind of perfect, isn't it?
It's so perfect.
Yeah. And again, stylistically, he draws them perfectly.
It is so hilarious.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Yeah. And you always got the impression, no matter what happens with Beavis and Butthead, they'll never learn, they'll never grow, they'll never get better, they'll never improve. I mean, it's going to be this eternal repetitious existence for them, no matter what happens to them in years to come, which we never find out. But you know that about them.
Right. They're totally stunted.
And so isn't that so perfect for this
Mhm.
for this play here? Yeah. Okay, here's some more. And okay. So yeah, I mean, I like some of these more than I liked others. I think I really liked this one, Action Camus, yeah, American pronunciation. I did like good old Gregor Brown, and he's done since this book has been published. He has done more, and perhaps he's done other stuff, not just this stuff. He's done lots of other stuff. You know, I think he has a website. But anyway, I know he's active on like Tumblr and stuff. I haven't followed him too much, but anyway, we can talk about that later. I really like the Dostoevsky Batman comic. Let's see. I don't know if I have a specific favorite, but here we go, Mephistophiled. And actually, one way or another, this is kind of the one reason I chose this was specifically for you, Stephen. No, what a big Faust fan you are. And it does kind of, because Garfield is always going to get John. Garfield, you know, John's just never going to win against Garfield, and so to do this, I mean, you know, Garfield is just this you know, complete jerk to John constantly, and John is just this hapless idiot. just this hapless fool. I mean, it's just it is perfect. It's a perfect casting.
So I had a question about that though, and it's been a long time since I studied Goethe's Faust. But was Faust such an idiot? I see John as like, you know, more of a dense fuckwit than Faust, right?
Well, the Marlowe version of the play is probably the greater popularisation. It was an original tale before Marlowe, but Marlowe's entire point about Faust was he sells his soul, he gains enormous power, and one of the ironies of the story is how poorly he uses it in the end, because Faust simply succumbs to his own inner inertia. His problem at the start, before he sold his soul to the devil, was the inertia of his soul. And he exchanges that for outward power. He could have anything on the outside, but still he doesn't really do all that much. He ends up, the inertia of his soul still dominates him. For example, you know, the fooleries he engaged in, where he went to the St. Peter's or whatever it was to play tricks on the Pope. You know, he was just playing games, just passing times, just engaging in nonsense, and he did all that for a short, you know, 24 years or something, and then ends up an eternity in hell. There's some sort of message there. The message is about modern man, actually. Modern humanity gains magic in the form of technology. Now, way back before it was so obvious, Marlowe's warning was, give man whatever he wants and he will use it poorly.
So is John the right character to be Faust? That was my question.
Well, Faust was a scholar, you know, and an intellectual.
So I wasn't buying it.
Whereas John, of course, is as empty-headed as the dog Odie, just about. but the whole thing is the similarity is really, it's less obvious in the Faust story, but he is rather feckless, actually. He's given all this power, and what's he do with it? Nothing much. Nothing very useful, just lives out his 24 years and then ends up in hell. I don't know what the bit with Helen and Troy matches up, but I think John would get the occasional girlfriend or something, and Garfield would do his best to ruin it. Oh, that's my bit anyway. Oh. But one of the great classic stories, not to be ignored.
Yeah, maybe it's just that John, you know, ultimately is never going to succeed with his ambitions. And yeah, Faust certainly doesn't.
So I think can we talk about like the first three panels and how Garfield actually looks like Odie? Why is that?
Let me go back to it here. Well, no, I think these two Odies are supposed to be his
good and evil side.
Yeah, this is angel and his devil. And
thank you.
Yeah. No, Garfield is actually Beelzebub, Mephistofield, when he calls him in the next strip here.
Well, this is it. This is in the second panel. You see the whole point. Or should I practice this damned art and become lord of all the earth?
Yeah.
This is a power that Faust had. He ends up just being a little bit of a playboy at best, and not even a very good one.
Yeah, most people, if they had ultimate power, wouldn't do a very good job. Not even sure anybody would.
I can't ride anymore. My blood's congealing. Don't worry, I'll keep it moving. Is he lights a fire.
Yeah, I mean, this is just such a perfect match of the yeah, the basic constitution of these various comic strips. I mean, even here where he depicts the 7 deadly sins. I mean, these are just so perfect Jim Davis characters. You know, I mean, they just look like Jim Davis could have drawn them. You could see like that snooty waiter that sometimes you see in some Garfield comics. And sometimes when there's a tough guy character, you know, usually they're just in there for one comic, but yeah, or an old lady character. Yeah, just matches perfectly. Mm. Mm. And the style of the jokes, the joke telling, the gags, you know, they're all gags that you could see the cartoonists themselves making. Like these all seem like legitimate Garfield comics. If you saw it, you would if you didn't know any better, you'd be fooled. You'd go, I thought I knew Garfield, but is this a real Garfield? You right? I think a lot of people would be fooled.
Do you think that he consulted with
Oh no!
the
Oh
original
goodness,
artist? No.
oh goodness, no, no!
Okay.
I couldn't imagine. I couldn't imagine that. Oh no, 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 no. I mean, some of them are dead. Some of them are dead for one thing, but no, I don't think. I don't think so. I mean, it still counts as parody, so I'm sure there would never be any legal reprisal. I mean, of course you can do it, but parody is legally protected. But it's like Weird Al Yankovic, you know, he knows that he can do anything he wants legally, but he makes it a career. He makes it a professional point of honor to get the artist's permission before he parodies a song. Even though legally he could, but if the artist says no, then he won't do it. But that's a professional courtesy. But you could do it legally. Yeah. So legally, you can't sue over a parody. Mm. Yeah, I forget the artist's name who did Little Lulu, but he's regarded as a very, very good cartoonist with a very clean style. And this is, yeah, I forget his name. But anyway, I was never a Little Lulu fan. Okay, so there we are. As I said before, we've done some pretty serious things in the last couple of weeks, so this was going to be one of the ones that let's just take some time and have something fun to go over. Actually, upcoming next couple of weeks, if you see the schedule, we've got some pretty heavy, serious ones coming up. So yeah, I'm going to try to make a balance between the two. So yeah, as I was saying, R.C. Koryak, still not sure of his name, has done some other things. Maybe I could find, if anyone's interested, I can find his website. And we can do. Are any comments from anyone? Here we go. Yeah, this is his website, rckoryak.com.
I just appreciated everyone's perspective. I'm going to have to run, but I
Yeah,
hadn't actually read every single one of these before tonight, but now I have a greater appreciation definitely for all of them, especially the portrait of Dorian Gray. Like now that one was very grotesque and I was kind of like, ugh, I don't want to read it. It just looks so gross, but now I get it. And
yeah. Glad you joined in, Kim, and hope to see you again.
All right, thanks. Bye.
Okay, bye, Kim. Okay, let's go back to this. I haven't been here in a while. I think he's changed things up. So he did Masterpiece Comics. That's the one we did. Now, Terms and Conditions, if you don't know what that is, Terms and Conditions is where he did the entire an adaptation of the complete iTunes agreement. It's a 100-page graphic novel. It's the iTunes terms and conditions.
Oh, so what's his name out of Apple, is it?
Yeah, that's Steve Jobs. Yeah, Steve Jobs is on every page. Yeah. So, for example, here's Steve Jobs in a little Lulu comic. Steve Jobs is Batman. Steve Jobs is X-Men, Snoopy, etc., etc. You get the idea. But each one of these pages is just nothing more than the terms and conditions. Apple reserves the right to close accounts and request alternative forms of payment in a gift certificate, iTunes card or code, content code, or allowances fraudulently obtained or used on the service. Apple, issuer, and their licensees, affiliates, and licensors make no warranties, express or implied, with respect to gift certificates, iTunes cards or codes, content codes, or allowances, or the iTunes Store, App Store, Mac App Store, or iBook Store, including without limitation any express or implied warranty or merchandisability or fitness for a particular purpose. In the event that a gift certificate, iTunes card, or code, content code, or allowance is non-functional, your sole remedy and sole liability shall be replacement of such gift certificate, iTunes card, or code, content code, or allowance, etc., etc., etc. He does the entire thing. He does the entire iTunes terms and conditions, page after page of it. Steve Jobs, just in all these different characters, as Snoopy, as Batman, etc., for 100 pages. That's the idea. So he's done that. Seduction of Mike, I'm not really sure what that is. The Unquotable Trump, that's the idea. Let's take Donald Trump's actual quotes and put them as these comic book covers. You can see, and either you're amused by that or you're not, and perhaps some of you might be, some of you might not be, and we can leave it there if necessary. So, and I think he's done some other things too. So anyway, so yeah, I wanted to bring this. I think this was a good comic. This is actually worthwhile. It's a worthwhile project, worthwhile comic, worth reading. I'm glad.
I guess the message.
The what?
I guess the message in Adam and Eve was ignorance is bliss.
maybe. I think there was kind of this mid-century post-war naivete to Blondie and Dagwood. You know, that it was that kind of Leave It to Beaver and 1950s sitcom, Middle America, fantasy, really, mythology. And it really was kind of like then an attempt at a Garden of Eden, you know, and it wasn't too long before the cracks began to show and became overwhelming, I think, which kind of does match the story of the Garden of Eden with Adam and Eve. So maybe that's a good match there.
I have to take off. Thank you very much. That was great.
Good to meet you, Tad. I'm glad you came, and I hope to see you again.
Thanks, you too.
Sure. Yeah, we're here every Friday. Kim and Tad were newcomers. We're here for the first time, and we do our Friday night Let's Read a Comic.
Dagwood comic claiming dated back to 1930.
As I recall, I believe that was a different cartoonist, and there was another cartoonist who took it over. I think in the 50s. I'd have to check on that, but I think that the original cartoonist stopped, and then another guy took it over. But I think there were like the classic everybody remembers Blondie and Dagwood was actually the second guy who did it. I'd have to check to make sure. I was never that interested in Blondie and Dagwood, to be honest.
They did have movie versions as well, not
I remember
cartoons.
that. Yeah, I do remember that.
A live movie.
Like, I mean, like when they got big into the popular culture, it really wasn't until the 40s or 50s. Like things like the Dagwood sandwich became a big, became a fad at one point. I know that. I think that was in the 50s, maybe the 40s.
Oh, it seems they called the film series Blondie.
Yeah, Blondie. Yeah. Yeah. So it is interesting to see all the different art styles. These are all the great classic art styles of really American 20th century comics history. All the greats were covered here. So on that basis, I'm going to put Metalia on the spot here. Metalia, what did you think?
Sorry, what was that again? About what?
Did you read the comic?
Yeah, I did, yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, it was just this overview of all the classic comics of the 20th century.
Yeah, I stopped at the Wuthering Heights apartment. Yeah, I thought it was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
But the story of Garfield as Beelzebub, I think that was kind of
Yeah, the EC comics of the 50s are the most popular were the horror comics. Those are the ones that most people go for. Those it was the Crypt of Terror and the Vault of Horror. I have the feeling I'm misremembering those names. Gonna look that up. But there we go. No, not going to tell me. Okay. Tales from the Crypt. That's it. Tales from the Crypt. Yeah, there was a TV show, and there was, I think, a couple of movies actually called Tales from the Crypt. Don't know why couldn't remember that name. Tales from the Crypt. That's it. But so that's the one everybody remembers. But actually, in terms of the actual quality, I really do think the War comics, which we did do months ago, remember? I really think the War comics are actually higher quality.
Is it the Frontline Combat, I think?
Frontline Combat.
Yeah.
The other one is Two-Fisted Tales. We did a sampling of those. Yeah, but I think those are actually better quality than the horror. Although everybody loves the horror ones. Those are the popular ones. Yeah, Tales from the Crypt. There was a TV show. There were actually more than one TV show called Tales from the Crypt.
Well, the theme that was in the Keffy and Heathcliff, Wuthering Heights. The classic theme was that of sex and revenge, which has dominated quite a few storylines. And so it's often something that's reviewed, especially in psychology. For example, have you ever seen the modern series Poldark?
No, that sounds familiar.
But I've never watched it.
Yeah, there was an original BBC serial made in the 70s, and in recent times they did a remake. It's about a landowner in the Napoleonic War period. And he's also involved in smuggling. So the great contradiction of the story is this Poldark always regards himself as a good bloke, but he's really doing a lot of devious things. And he marries a girl beneath him, but he's always in love with the fashionable lady that's on the hill. He's been in love with a particular lady since he was a young guy, and he went and fought in the Revolutionary Wars against the bad people, the Americans, and got captured and put in prison and eventually repatriated back to Britain. His lady love had married another, and he was always broken up over that. Oh, no, really one of the great TV serials.
Sounds interesting.
If you like some passion. If you don't like sex and revenge, where's the passion in your life?
Yeah, I've heard it said that, yeah, without making mistakes, you can't grow. Forget the exact quote, but something like that.
So there's not much in the way of Wuthering Heights fans there, I see.
That's the one. Yeah, I mean, I remember the movie, not well, but the one where she starts saying, "Yeah, let me look upon the heather, the heather." That right? Yeah. In Monty Python, didn't they do the semaphore version of Wuthering Heights? Remember that? Nobody?
Sorry, no, oh right, okay.
Monty Python did the semaphore version of Wuthering Heights.
I do remember they did have a few scenes where they seemed to be parodying.
It's probably on YouTube.
British drama, you know, the period piece British drama. I think what was it, the Spanish Inquisition are dropping in on a sort of a turn of the century type setting, aren't they?
Yeah, I do remember that. Yeah, it is on YouTube. But it'll kill the recording if I start playing it, so I guess I won't. Yeah, so I chose it basically for you, Stephen, because for the Faust. I don't know if there's a good comics version of Faust. Well, of course, there's Classic Illustrated. I was just thinking the other day, maybe we could do some of those, because some of those are actually pretty good. So maybe we'll put some of those on the schedule if anybody wants. I've got kind of like the year blocked out roughly, but I can always move things around. So yeah, I thought this would be a good, fun, lighthearted selection. So
yeah. Unfortunately, my reading of Camus is a bit limited.
Yeah, I read The Stranger. It was assigned in my existentialism class.
So what do you make out of the French existentialists then, the French existential authors? Now, you've got to remember the original existential author was Dostoevsky, who applied the existential concept in literature.
Yeah, Dostoevsky certainly had a great deal to say about mankind, society, civilization.
You see, existential credentials are often overlooked by most people because I just don't take him as a straight philosopher, you see.
Yeah. Yeah, which he should be, because he does have a lot of insight into the human condition and the nature of mankind and our fallibility.
Well, I put the ad for the original Poldark trailer. This was a remake that showed up about 5 years ago or something.
Yeah, I see that.
Trouble I had with the remake of Poldark was it was just completely just good and evil. It was the villains were just total mustache twirlers. There wasn't much nuance, and all the heroes had chiseled abs and things like that. It was very my girlfriend loved it, but it was a bit turgid. I suppose it's not, that's
Well,
not...
the whole thing with Poldark is he's deceiving you. He's eternally saying, I am the good guy. But a lot of the stuff he does is not good. And he's contrasting himself with what he regards as the bad guy. He has to find something far blacker than him, so he starts to look grey or white against it.
It's kind of interesting, the differences. Well, there's, of course, it's easier to do sweeping camera techniques in the 21st century as opposed to the 70s, but also just, the actors, they sort of looked more ordinary back in the 70s.
Oh, the Brits were famous for, back in the 70s, their actors weren't exactly the most face-pleasing ones around, unlike, say, your American TV at the time had gone for the good-looking ones.
Oh yeah.
But then again, they didn't. In the old days, they didn't pay British actors all that much money, so you had to take what you could get. But the first series of Poldark was shot on 16mm.
Oh wow. Okay.
So. Actually, I wonder. No, certainly their outdoor was done on 16mm. I'm not too sure. I assume maybe the indoor was done on 35.
Huh.
But yeah, a lot of the original Poldark was much more strongly dominated by stage settings.
My girlfriend used to call it Poldark and Handsome, the newer version.
I've read Poldark and Demelza, the first two books, but I decided not to go any further. But the remake, the first season of the remake, is very, very, how do I say, very pleasing to the eye. It's just all that, everything's going Demelza's way and all that, and it's a bit. It plays on human weaknesses quite a great deal.
Mining Country never looked so good.
It compares rather horribly with the novel, which makes point that the common people were living in very, very poor conditions. They were virtually living on the level of animals sometimes. Well, this is the impression it creates, but I think the British working class were doing pretty poor for a long time, I think until after World War II. And how about Wuthering Heights then? If you got into Poldark, you must have seen a few Wuthering Heights.
Oh yeah, well, there have been, multiple versions of Wuthering Heights. The classic, what was that? The 1950. What year was that? The one with Olivier.
Oh, right. Yeah. I can't recall the year.
And then, of course, there's the Kate Bush song.
Yes. Olivia de Havilland. I'm wondering now, that sounds more like it'd be 1930s. You imagine that's the sort of story that would have gotten the 30s classic treatment.
Mm-hmm.
Hi guys, I'm new to this group and just wanted to take leave. And before leaving, I'm a storyteller and a writer and a big fan of Dostoevsky and Studio Ghibli. But I'm kind of new to the graphic novel and just picking up. And then there have been very nice suggestions from this group in the past weeks. So I would be kind of regular and irregular, like 1 week, next week, that way, alternate week.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, most book groups, when they meet once a month. It is a bit of a large commitment to expect everybody to be here every week. Some people can do it, but most people cannot. And I perfectly understand that. That's okay. If you can come once a month or once every other week, that's fine. There's no commitment to come every week. It'd be great if you did, but you don't have to. No, but I understand. People just can't do a weekly, and that's fine.
Yeah,
Of course.
and I keep an eye on all the work that you guys discussed. So I'm up to date to that.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Yeah. Well, I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad to have you join in when
Thank
you
you.
can. Sure, Matthew.
Bye-bye.
Oh, so we've got a cat.
It's David's cat.
You have to be on top of her. She'll do something crazy. Yeah. As I say, I try to do a overview of people. I'm not sure who I'm talking to anymore. But anyway, yeah, I've been reading, I've given my spiel before. I've been reading comics my whole life. I think it's a beautiful medium. If you look at the schedule of the other groups, there's a literature discussion group, there's a movie discussion group. So I figured there should be at least one graphic novel discussion group. It's a beautiful art form. There's no reason it can't have as much depth and richness as a movie or a television show or a novel. No reason at all. What I'm trying to do is present to people some examples of the great works that have been done in the past and some contemporary. We're going to do more contemporary things that have come out in the last 3 years. We're going to do more of those. We've kind of stayed away, but just watch coming up. We've got some stuff coming up that are like stuff that came out in the last 3 years.
Oh yeah, Matthias from last week isn't here. Remember the guy, Matthias?
I forgot.
Said he wanted to, I think, show us something from his.
Yeah, I know. I've forgotten. Oh, we did Age of Bronze last week.
Yeah.
Age of Bronze.
I figured he might come.
I want to give like an overview. There's all the great.
Well, the tragedy of people who are not aware of the tale of Wuthering Heights. Another of her sisters did Jane Eyre, which was another classic tale. So I think there was the three main sisters came up with quite a few of the classics of English literature.
If anybody reads Kate Beaton's comics, and if you don't, you should be.
Kate Beaton, what's she get up to?
Well, she used to be in live in Vancouver. She's in I think she's in like Halifax now. But she used to do these literary mashups, where it was modern gags sort of set in Dark Ages or medieval times or Regency times, but sort of really well researched. Just like the details of the costuming and the way that people interacted was always just she obviously had an appreciation for that sort of thing. If anybody's interested, I did a radio interview several years ago with Sikoryak at the KBOO studios. I can put the link in the comments.
Please do.
Please do.
Yeah,
Okay.
sure.
That's great.
Yeah, he was a real,
Hey, look at that.
really swell guy.
Yeah.
Actually, very generous with his time.
Well, it's good to hear. What's KBOO? Is that a
Portland Community Radio.
community radio? Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, in Portland. Yeah.
I used to do a college radio.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, this is just it's a.
I'll bet you could tell from. I bet you could tell from my style, my presentation style.
Yeah, this is just a show about the narrative arts. So I've had a bunch of interesting graphic novel authors and comics artists, people, animators, filmmakers.
Well,
So just whenever they come through town, actually, it's the pandemic's changing everything these days. So it's being done over Zoom these days. So since the studios are closed, we'll see how that shakes out.
I will definitely listen to this, and I'll check
thank
out your backlog here, your back
All right.
catalog here. Well, yeah, I'm glad you came by. I'm glad to meet you.
Likewise.
Hope you stick around, SW Kunser.
Well, I've been to I've been to a couple of the what's the cafe, the one off of Hawthorne. Been to a couple of the in-person meetups. So
You're in
back
Portland?
before the quarantine hit.
You're in Portland?
Yeah. Is this not the Portland one? I never know what's what anymore in the age of Zoom. It can be anywhere.
It is. It
He's
is.
in
It is
Seattle.
anywhere. It is everywhere.
Seattle.
I haven't really watched the old TV series Dark Shadows. I assume that you were a fan of that one as well, were you?
Let's see who.
Dark Shadows?
Oh, Dark Shadows was kind of before my time. That was 1960s, right? I was more of a 1970s kid.
Yeah, one of the interesting things is that they plan to remake the series in 1990, and they made a few episodes, but they got overshadowed by the Gulf War and disappeared very quickly.
Wasn't there a movie? Didn't like Tim Burton or somebody do a movie version?
Yeah, it was a comedy. Yeah, the movie version that came out in the last decade was some sort of comedy, which didn't
Okay.
please me too greatly. It had that the guy who played in Pirates of the Caribbean was playing the part of
Okay, yeah.
the vampire. But the original Dark Shadows is interesting because it was created purely as a daytime sort of gothic soap. And it's just ordinary characters for a few episodes. And it was then that they introduced the idea of a vampire moving into the environs. So they took quite a decisive turn, and eventually it becomes an occult horror classic.
Right.
Oddly enough, I've got the whole book collection, but I've hardly read any of it. No Dark Shadows fans here, right?
I've had older friends who were fans. I just was never introduced to it.
There was a comic book as well, but I don't know how extensive. I did have one of the comics once. Which certainly would have been mainstream since it was because it was, of course, it had already become a popular TV show. Gold Key Comics. That sounds right.
Oh yeah, Gold Key was had all sorts of like wide-ranging titles. Yeah, they like to do adaptations. I think they did Star Trek and things like that.
It starts
Yeah, that sounds about
They
right.
did movies. Yeah, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea and stuff like that.
So they were sort of they were sort of the 60s 70s version of comics, or sorry, Classics Illustrated. Well, except sort of Pop Classics Illustrated, I guess. What's really, I grew up in England, so there were some adaptations of comics properties there that were very odd. They would take comics like Popeye and Bugs Bunny and Beetle Bailey and do these really strange versions of them. They were really well done art-wise, but the content had this strange sort of mid-century British sensibility to them. Like TV Comic was one that I grew up with. That's definitely a niche right there. You know, you can find it on the web. There's people who really love to dive into TV Comic, and it's comics versions of Doctor Who and the Avengers and things like that. The Avengers being the Avengers TV show, not the Avengers.
Yeah,
from
I got
Marvel.
it. We got that.
Yeah, there's an image. That last one I put up, that was the comic I had, Dark Shadows number 10.
I have to look that up. Dark Shadows comics.
It was one where he was caught by a witch.
Okay.
And somehow he was reduced to a skeleton and he was dead, basically. And his followers had to revive him as a living being again. I just vaguely remember the comic a little bit, but it quite captured me, actually.
So I'm seeing opinions that it was kind of a soap opera.
Yeah. Basically, it was about people living in some sort of a house, you know, they're wealthy. And what happens is a relative moves in, which they don't realise is actually a distant relative from their ancient past. So it's more or less a relative from their ancestry. But of course, as a vampire, he'd been living for a couple of centuries. So it was set in New England. And they were shipbuilders originally. So you had these, you know, sort of a wealthy New England types that live the cultured life, and then they have a vampire move in. He always has to hide his true identity, and eventually they start adding to it, and we end up with another character as a werewolf. And like I said, it would have been the sort of show I would have loved to have watched as a kid, but you know, I think they put it on just at a time I couldn't get to it. You know, I wouldn't get home early enough to watch it because it was, get home from school early enough to watch it.
Well, it sounds like I can see why they would do a comedy version of it, because that seems to be ripe for parody, a soap opera. Kind of like What We Do in the Shadows, that sort of thing. I'm looking for more mashups of literature and comics here.
Well, the interesting thing about Dark Shadows is you're comparing a character who's from 200 years ago. Well, actually more now. You know, he's from the 18th century. On the outside, he's a monster, but on the inside, he's still a considerate person, even though he's forced to be a monster. And the whole point of that becomes the modern series is that the modern crassness of culture, the drive for money, in a sense that the modern human, although he's a pure human, on the outside he's become a monster through his desires for, the mercantile, for commerce, the desire to cheat others and exploit others. So this is the dichotomy of the Dark Shadow story, and the vampire is often protecting people from predators, from commercial predators. Have I managed to convince you to become Dark Shadows fans yet?
I'll have to give it a look. There's so do they do any sort of do they do any sort of references to like Gothic literature?
I don't know. I imagine the show's got a Wikipedia page.
So here's a fun mashup. Actually, another person I've had on the show that people might want to look into, it's he's actually British, Scottish, and his name is Gald, Tom Gald, and anybody who likes just inside jokes from literary sources would really enjoy this. I'm just looking up an article on LitHub right now. You should be reading these literary comics, and Tom Gald is right at the top here. So he does one about Samuel Beckett's sitcom pitches. This is very much in the same sort of sensibility as Sikoryak. I'll put this link in the comments as well. Just a second. Got to find this on my phone here. All right.
He's on Tumblr.
Yeah. Also a really great guy. I just he came through Portland for the Wordstock Literary Festival, and interesting character, very nerdy, very into science.
His Tumblr has been on my RSS feed for years.
Oh, great. Yeah, he does a lot of stuff in the New Yorker. He's done some covers. Okay,
Yeah, he posts everything he does on his Tumblr.
Yeah, let me I haven't checked Tumblr in ages. I really should. I actually prefer Tumblr to
I could tell you everybody I follow on Tumblr and the comics.
Yeah, I should check Tumblr more often. I like it better than Instagram. But
called You're All Just Jealous of My Jetpack.
Yeah. So
no, I follow him. I follow Saturday Morning Breakfast Cereal.
Oh yeah, that's good.
I hope everybody follows that one. one I really like, but very few people know about. It's called Bob the Angry Flower. I don't know if
Oh yeah, Bob the Angry Flower is fantastic.
I follow
Yeah.
that. Good. Yeah, that's another one.
Okay, you've given me. Okay, I need to get back to being serious about Tumblr now.
Carrie
Checking it out.
Callan is also good. Oh, Roger Langridge.
Oh right, yes.
Roger Langridge. I follow him.
I'm going to take your suggestions very seriously here, Roger. Especially now that we're all locked down, we have to support artists.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, I love his stuff. Just really funny. I mean, just, you know, I'm so impressed with people who just, their art is funny. They don't have to put a single word in there. Al Jaffe turns 100 next month, and I was just
wow.
looking up Tom. Is it Tom Viviano? Viviano, the guy who used to be with Mad Magazine, is doing a tribute to him. And Al Jaffe, just like boundless creativity and his gags, you know, he could do like a really great, just obscure gag, bring it up and make it just sing. I so appreciate people who can do that. You know, I mean, again, it's the thing that Sikoryak does. You don't necessarily have to know the source material with any huge amount of depth to get what you know, because he just distills it so beautifully.
So what's your name, Southwest Conservative?
It's, well, you know, people call me Conser or Conch, if you like.
All right.
Southwest Conservative.
It's my website is conch.com, conch.com. And yes, it desperately needs to get overhauled. I know that much. I don't even have a link to the radio show, but the radio show is at kboo.fm/words and pictures. So, yeah.
So is that your actual initials, SW, is it?
It is, yes. There's my actual initials.
So your first name's South. Well, that's quite inventive.
Well.
Sticky Wicket.
On the internet, no one knows you're a dog.
Well, thank you for the Tumblr suggestions. This is fantastic. I'm really enjoying this.
Yeah, I stopped XK CD. It just got too repetitive. I had to get rid of it.
You know, I actually like his books. I got my dad The Thing Explainer.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But the one I like even better is the what's the one that's just completely gone out of my mind.
I haven't paid attention to him in a long time.
What is his name? I'm terrible with names.
Yeah, I just wasn't enjoying it very much, and so I stopped.
Randall Monroe. So he did.
Yeah.
So something better than his, in my opinion, than his comic, is the blog that he would do where people would write in with a question.
Yeah, I remember that
about
one.
Physics.
Yeah, I do remember.
And yeah, I think it's called How To Absurd Scientific Advice. I think that's the one. Yeah, it's completely fascinating to me and to all science nerds, I guess. What if? Oh no, I think it's What If is actually the name of it. The one I liked. There's How To, which is a new one, but What If is an older one. Yeah, Randall Monroe.
Yeah, I think I remember that.
And it's based on a series of blog posts, which is whatif.xkcd.com. Yeah, I mean, you know, I'm personally, I'm personally one of those people that believes that the art is the better half of a gag. So, if you can't draw yourself and you're not willing to learn to draw, you should recruit an artist to translate your words into drawings. And the fact that Monroe never did that always sort of left me a little bit cold.
Yeah, it can't get much more minimal, although it's hard to top Long Shot Comics for minimal.
Oh yeah. I think there's only so far you can go with that one.
Yeah, well, can't get any more minimal than that. I mean, that's even more minimal than Get Your War On, more minimal than stick figures. Yeah.
I was rather miffed by a local news article where the farmers were complaining because of the movement restrictions. They can't get enough fruit pickers. And one farmer found how to get enough fruit pickers. You know what the trick was? He
What?
paid them more money. And suddenly all these fruit pickers appeared.
Yeah, funny.
They demand, the fruit pickers demanding Australia open up to foreign labour so they can get the cheap labour, you see, but they can get enough people locally if they pay them the price they want. That's the problem in the wage system. The employers want the cheapest possible wage, but they can get what they want done if they're prepared to pay the wage. And that's always been the argument. Every time they argue that there isn't enough labour around, that's their eternal argument. What they really mean is the labour isn't cheap enough. And even though I'm a conservative in politics, this is one of the I suppose us popularists do have a bit of a soft spot for the working man for some reason. Who knows? In a more normal world, even you might have a job, David. It's a person with your peculiarities has probably been squeezed out of the job market. After all, they do like mindless sheep who say yes all the time.
Yeah.
You'd be questioning things. That wouldn't go too well in the modern workforce. So has there been any other comics that people have enjoyed themselves? Just remembering Dark Shadows myself.
I mean, I've given a lot of things that I've liked here over the months that I've been doing this. Like, for example, this one. This is one I've enjoyed in the past. And so is next week's, actually.
And now you've discovered Gold Key's Dark Shadows.
What do you think of the quality of the Gold Key Dark Shadows comics?
Myself? Well, it's been 50 years, I think. And I remember I was found it quite powerful. That was a time when I was visiting the comic book stands and grabbing Donald Duck and the occasional. I think my dad used to get the occasional, the more adventuresome comic, which I quite appreciated. I think the Vampire, the Dark Shadows one might have been one I grabbed.
All right, if you guys, I'll give you, what is it? You specified issue 10? Okay. So that's issue 10 right there.
Oh, I love that. That's some nice painting on the cover there. There's some looks like
Oh, there it is. Yeah, I remember it now.
classic.
Yeah, he's racing home, trying to get back before the sun rises, and he's miscalculated. It's a hazard of professional hazard for a vampire, and there's his friend who's a werewolf at the wrong times of the night. And the lady there is normal, except she seems to like gothic characters quite a lot. And he's been reduced to a pile of bones in reality, and his spirit appears as a Barnabas ghost in the control of the sort of a Queen of the Damned type figure.
Now, see, but the thing is, you know, it's just a lot of people just really standing around on the phone, standing around talking. I don't know. It just doesn't seem to me to be very visually interesting, having tea here.
Yeah, well, that's what it was based on, a daytime soap opera.
Yeah, it's just people standing around talking. Well, by and large, you know. If you want, I can show you something I was thinking about just earlier today. I don't know if you've ever read any of the old classic Fantastic Four issues. I mean, the real classic Fantastic Four issues.
Yeah, I think that's the difference between us. I think the Dark Shadows style of people standing around talking is more my scene.
Well, yeah. But here's my point, Stephen. I got to get a new mouse. Okay, now let's just go through this bit by bit.
Oh, yeah, it was my dad that used to buy the odd Fantastic Four comic.
Now, see, this, though, it's a lot of it is just people standing around talking until you get to some action here with the Human Torch here. But look at the style here. Look at the detail on the background, on the buildings. I mean, there's a flair there, and the machinery here. You see what I mean? And there's some nice drama with the contrast in black and white here. Here's what I want. Okay. Or how about this? Like, you see, it's just like these doctors here. But even when it is, a lot of it is just, you know, establishing shot here and people standing around talking. But I still think it's visually interesting. Even though it's just people standing around talking, I think it's visually interesting to look at. You know, the style is kind of compelling. You see what I mean?
Yeah, I wonder who the artist was for the Dark Shadows comic. Probably not quite as prestigious as the one for this one.
Yeah, I mean, there's details everywhere.
A Marvel Master pinup. Oh, well.
Yeah. Anyway.
So what's on for next week?
Swamp Thing.
Swamp. Oh, that's right. Yeah, Swamp Thing.
Swamp Thing.
I have seen a movie which was a comedy presentation of the character. Is it? I remember Elvira was taking pieces out of it. Elvira, remember her?
Oh yeah, Elvira. Yeah. Is that? Do you mean the one with Adrienne Barbeau?
I forget who was in it, but it was a superhero, but it was a comedic film. wasn't
You mean
serious.
the Toxic Avenger?
Oh yeah. I remember. Yeah, it was the Toxic Avenger. I remember very well. Swamp Thing, the movie.
Yeah, Adrienne Barbeau was in Swamp Thing, the movie.
Looks like they've done some more recent ones.
Yeah, there was a TV show a little while ago.
So, and I don't quite remember the story of Swamp Thing. Was he originally a human that gets turned into a Swamp Thing, or was he always a Swamp Thing?
The origin is he was a biochemist named Alec Holland, who was working on a plant growth acceleration formula, and then in an accident, and it later turns out he was deliberately sabotaged. His whole laboratory explodes into flame, and this was in the bayous of Louisiana, and he was drenched in the bio accelerant formula, and covered in flame. And he stumbles out into the swamp outside his laboratory, and when he emerges, he is turned into the Swamp Thing. And that's his origin.
There's a fairly early run where Alan Moore was doing the writing. Isn't that true?
You don't spoil it. Don't
sorry.
spoil it. Don't
Okay.
spoil it.
Okay. All right.
Come back next week.
All
Come
right.
back next week. Come back next week. We'll get into it.
Okay, Louise Jordan. Okay, right. And Adrienne Barbeau. Right. I forgot who she was actually I didn't click when you mentioned the name, but she was in Escape from New York, wasn't she? Adriana Barbeau.
Right, yeah. Kurt Russell.
So I see the Toxic Avenger was actually, did it rip off Swamp Thing?
That's a matter of opinion.
Well, the theme is obviously is a common one in the superhero story of revenge, isn't it? Where that was the element of the Phantom of the Opera as well, where the character who was wounded or harmed eventually seeks to revenge themselves upon those that harmed them. Well, that was.
I think there's a better case that Man Thing was a ripoff of Swamp Thing.
They all derive from the heap. All of them derive from the heap. Every one of them comes from the heap.
Okay, now I'm gonna have to look into that.
No, the heap was the original
Okay.
of all of them. Muck monsters who reside in the swamp. No, the heap was first.
Well, we'll find out more about that next week, I guess.
Yeah, I'm glad you stopped by.
Thank you. Yeah,
sounds like-
I should toddle along at this point.
Right.
Look forward to seeing you next week.
I will definitely check. I looked through your backlog. Wow, I was very impressed, and I'm definitely gonna have a lot of these on my player for when I eat lunch. I listen to podcasts when I eat lunch.
Oh,
Yeah.
fantastic.
Bunch of them.
Yeah,
I
that would
definitely
be great. Just something I do for fun and not for money. So I'm always happy to have people who appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, wow. Glad to have you here. I hope you stick around.
Okay,
I
great.
suppose the Shape of Water. What did people think of the Shape of Water?
Oh yeah, I
God.
want to see that. I've heard of it.
Yeah, I am embarrassed to say that I haven't watched that. I've always meant to.
Yeah, I've heard good things. I want to see that.
Definitely a film to be watched. It's sort of the highbrow set were watching it, and I think they were right. Very, very powerful film, I would say, or subtly powerful.
Did you say you're in Australia? Is that right?
Yep. So is Metalia as well.
Well, I'm on a comics group on Facebook, and they've been putting out a lot of foot rot flats recently, and I realized there's a whole lot of inside humor there for Aussies, but I do enjoy the characters. They're
I'm sorry to disappoint you.
uh-huh.
New Zealand, I think it is.
Oh, sorry about that.
You've mistaken Aussies for New Zealand, and that puts you eternally in the flames.
I apologize profusely. What a terrible what a terrible mix-up.
Goodness me.
So Swamp Thing, the comic book, and David will send us out a link for that one.
Yeah, as usual.
Sorry, what was your name again? Southwest Conservative.
Conch, right?
Conch or
Conch.
concert, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, good to meet you, Conch. I hope you stick around.
Conservative.
Thank you. Likewise. Yeah. Thanks for hosting. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna duck out because it's 7:30 now. But take care. Have a good weekend, everybody.
You too.
Thanks, you too.
See you next time.
Oh well, Matala, you want to show David your drawing work, or you want to reserve
Oh, I haven't
it?
finished it. It's still not refined. Maybe next week.
Next week.
Maybe next week. Okay.
Because I
I guess
haven't really got everything quite.
I guess it's time to sign off then.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
good turnout.
Yeah,
today.
my eyes started hurting a little. Need a break from this week.
Good turnout this week.
Okay.
Actually,
Well,
Alan,
okay.
so we'll see.
Wait, what are you
See
gonna
later
say?
then.
Okay, bye everyone.
Okay, bye.